Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my review for the sixth episode of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. As usual, you guys already know that I'm going to be going over the good, the bad, and the mixed aspects of this episode as usual. And then even next week, I'll be doing an episode, hopefully it comes out next Wednesday, about Kenobi or the entire show as a whole. I'll be reviewing the entire show as a whole, the good things, the bad things, the mixed things. Also improvements that could have been made or adjustments I would have made, and also different other stuff on how it kind of creates plot holes and everything. How I guess it resolves some, but opens up more. That's what I'll be diving into the next video for next week. But I have another video coming out about a pitch for the sequel trilogy, and I'm just saying that way I can remind myself to finish the script after I do this. But anyway, I'll be going over the episode. Right now, I'll just give my overall thoughts. And overall, I just thought the episode was really good. There are a lot of good points. There are some bad, which I'm going to get into, and some mixed. But overall, I thought it was a good episode. Especially just first watch. I'm just enjoying it. But then as soon as I sit down and I keep watching it a couple more times, then, I guess I wouldn't say that there are cracks, but there are some crevices, I would say, that you could see, if that makes any sense, if I'm using that correctly. But going on with the good, I would say the good part, I'll just start, of course, with the highlight of the show, is the duel between Obi-Wan and Vader, the rematch of the century, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm going to be honest, I thought it was pretty cool. I was expecting a little more, but I'm going to go into that in the mixed aspect. But overall, I thought it was good. I liked how you could see, well, one thing that I speculate or I theorize about is since this show takes place between episodes 3 and 4, and it's 10 years after episode 3, 9 years before A New Hope. This is kind of the point where we see Vader. He's not the Vader that we know in the original trilogy. This is kind of like a more Anakin Vader. This is kind of like 50-50 Vader. He's 50% Anakin, 50% Vader, in my opinion, what I would like to think. But the show kind of doesn't really do that, I would say. And even in his fighting style, he's more, I'd say, fluid and a little more faster than original trilogy Vader and everything. But and even with Obi-Wan, you could tell that Obi-Wan's fighting style is a little different too, because he's not just relying on Surasu, just not waiting out the opponent, waiting to strike at the right time, but he's actually using a good balance of Ataru, in my mind, Ataru and Surasu. And of course, we know that the writer doesn't really, I would say, know his stuff around Star Wars, I would say, because he has written. I'm not going to really go into that as a whole topic. I think I'll save that for next week, actually. But in my mind, I would like to think that Obi-Wan kind of used Ataru and Surasu in order to beat Vader, because we know that he does use Ataru, as we see in episode 1, and he's a master, or the master of Surasu. But other than that, the Force ability is really cool, especially on Obi-Wan's part, because we do know that Obi-Wan isn't I would say, the most gifted with the Force. We see him, I guess apparently he's one of the Jedi who had the lowest midichlorian counts in the entire order, but we see that he, through hard work and willpower, that he eventually, rises up to the level of Anakin, who has just raw strength with the Force, and that was really interesting. We see some of Obi-Wan's Force power that way. Everybody's not, Obi-Wan's weak with the Force, but he's actually very strong with it. We see him use the rocks against Vader. He kind of had like a Rey moment where he lifted all the rocks, and then he just shot them at Vader, and then Vader was just eating those things until he could finally get out and then start attacking again. But overall, I thought the fight was really cool. I'm going to dig into the aspects of the fight that I didn't like or I thought were mixed, in my opinion, and the mixed section. And then another good thing I would say is the Vader Unmasked scene, which I'm also going to get into that, how it ties into the fight, which what I would have done better. It was still nice to see Hayden Christensen underneath the mask and everything, in the interchange of dialogue between Kenobi and Vader. I like the comparison with Reva and Anakin about how you see how Anakin is wearing a robe and he's going around slaughtering younglings and everything. And then cut back to Reva, present day, who's kind of doing the same thing. And I guess she comes to a realization that she can't do it. And then as she's failed her friends, but then we have the interchange with Obi-Wan, which I thought was good. How, she didn't let them down. She kind of honored them by not going the route to the dark side. Well, she already has, but by not, giving revenge or seeking vengeance or actually acting upon that revenge or vengeance and everything. But she actually honored them, which I thought was a nice touch. I thought it was really good. I would want to step further with her, I guess, saying that, she wouldn't stoop to she would be better than him by not, doing, I don't know, something along those lines, I would say. I'm not an expert at dialogue. moving on, I guess we finally see Luke finally get a Skyhopper, which we know that he's gonna get. It was nice to see Obi-Wan finally meet Luke officially for the first time instead of when he was a baby and everything, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, I would say Owen and Brew, they were pretty good in this episode. I would say. Um, I would say it was really interesting because we know that in Legends that Owen was a complete jerk to Obi-Wan. But it kind of seems that he softened up a little bit in this episode, but still he's still he can still grow into the same grumpy Owen that we know that happens in episode 4, but I guess it just shows like a little softer side of Owen, I guess, from his harder exterior, I would say. And Beru was Beru. I wouldn't expect anything less from her. Always nice and kind hearted. She's not the mean type, she's always the polite, kind type, I would say. So she doesn't change, which is good. Um Now moving on to the mixed aspect of the show. Not the show, the episode rather. And my main criticism for this episode, I would say it's regarding or in this section, is the fight with Obi-Wan and Vader. Because in the months leading up to the series, this was called the rematch of the century, and it was going to be an amazing fight, which it was pretty good, I would say. It was pretty good, but I thought it could be better. They might be on a budget, so they probably work on what they can. But overall, even though I thought it was good, I just wish there was more. Especially, honestly, I just wanted a longer fight. I wish it was more brutal, and I wish we saw some dismemberment. I wish we should have saw like Vader's arms being cut off again, or maybe a leg being gone, or something to show that he's still the apprentice still. But overall, I just, especially with the whole Vader unmasked thing, um, I wish we would have saw Vader being more. I would say I think it would have been cool to see Vader continue to fight even though he was unmasked, because as soon as Obi-Wan kind of unmasked him, it was kind of like the fight was over, you know. And I wish that we could have seen more of Vader fight with the mask off, um, like kind of, I guess, the Force Unleashed, where Starkiller is still beating Vader even though the mask is off him. Um, but I just wish that would have been cool. And the way I would have done it was that I would have had Obi-Wan. This actually ties into my next point together. It's about Obi-Wan not really trying to turn Vader from the dark side. He's kind of apologizing to him and everything. But back to what I was saying. With the I lost my thought just now. I'm sorry. To the fight with Vader and mask. I wish that we would have saw Obi-Wan take the mask or slice Vader's mask open. They had that interchange of dialogue, and during that dialogue, you can have Obi-Wan apologize and then try to turn Anakin to the light side and everything, I guess. That way, that explains the line what Vader said in, I believe, episode 6, where he tells Luke that Obi-Wan once thought as you did, which would make perfect sense of Obi-Wan trying to turn Vader back to the light. And then when Vader finally says that I killed Anakin Skywalker, yada, 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 I'm just kind of, I guess, paraphrasing it. But that's when, I guess, Obi-Wan will come to his senses that he can't save him, or at least in his mind. And then that's when they start the duel again. And then after, I guess, Obi-Wan wins by dismembering him again, I guess. And then Obi-Wan leaves him to die. I wouldn't say leave him to die, but he just leaves him again. Which would enrage Vader for the next time that he sees Kenobi and everything, which would be in episode 4. But yeah, I think that's probably it on how I would adjust the fight. Just longer, more brutal. Maybe Kenobi can take some lightsaber strikes here and there, or cuts and everything like that. Close calls, and then Vader, since he already has cybernetics, why not make him lose an arm or something? Maybe lose an arm or two. Or maybe have him get Anakin again. Just all his limbs except one are gone again, and then he probably has to like crawl back to his ship or something. But I don't see that working. But I think this might be it for the mixed section, actually. Now going on to the bad section. Now this section I'm very critical of because continuity is a thing, and I think that they should always pay attention to this, and especially because the point I'm going to bring up, even though it was nice to see Qui-Gon again, don't get me wrong, it kind of doesn't really match up with what we know, because what we know is that Qui-Gon didn't finish his training with the Wills to become a Force Ghost, right? So he has to remain as a Force voice, and I believe he doesn't really. I don't think he actually fully materializes at all, except I think before maybe episode 4, right before episode 4. But then we also know that in the Mortis arc, the reason why he was able to manifest, at least in my headcanon, is because the Force was so strong with Mortis that Qui-Gon is actually able to manifest himself. And even then, Force was so strong, we know this is because Anakin was able to subdue both the son and the daughter. just using, because I guess he had a force amp where he was able to do that. He wouldn't do that in like, regular Anakin strength on a different planet. That just wouldn't work in my opinion. It was because Mortis was supercharged with the force, I guess, that they were able to do things that they wouldn't be able to normally do. And along with that, that explains why Qui-Gon's able to fully manifest himself. But even then, he's just kind of like a voice, After he dies, he's kind of like a voice. He's still, I guess, in this time learning his training. And then by the time he gets to, or we get to the original trilogy, he's able to fully manifest, even though we don't see him. But supposedly that happens based off the information that I've heard and read. Not read, but heard, because there's a lot of Star Wars publications out there. So just take it with a grain of salt, I would say, until I actually find some concrete evidence of that being true. And then that's all for Qui-Gon, this continuity thing. I guess I'll talk on that later in next week's video. And then also, another point that I still have a problem with is maybe not as much anymore because the series then has already concluded. But it's the Leia still not having her memory wiped or bumping her head or something like that. Because as we know, as I touched on in earlier videos, that when Leia only knows Obi-Wan as Ben Kenobi for the first 3 episodes, it isn't until the 4th episode where Reva kind of says that Obi-Wan's not here to save you now, and then that's when it's no longer Ben Kenobi that she's talking to, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And this also transitions right into, A New Hope, where she's calling him Obi-Wan Kenobi. And maybe people can say she's being formal, but I'm just saying that if you had a friend that kind of saved your life and you're requesting their help, you wouldn't say so in a formal way. Even though I guess you can if you haven't seen them in 9 years. I can see that happening, I guess. I'm not so opposed to it as I was before. Because I guess now it kind of makes sense. I'm still unsure how I feel about it, but it would have been interesting for her to only know Obi-Wan at that point as Ben Kenobi, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi, I guess, or Ben the Jedi, and then Obi-Wan as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then that's when, I don't know, they could have done something. I guess I'm kind of at a loss for words because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to articulate my words into what I want them to be. So for right now, I'll just leave this alone until next week. But I think that might be it. I think that might be it. It was shorter. I think this video is shorter than the other ones. For sure. This is only 12 minutes and 30 seconds right now. Usually it's like 17 minutes. But I think this is all. I just wanted to bring up the main points that I liked, the points that I disliked, and the points that I thought were mixed or could have been better. And I'm going to dive really deeper into this next week's episode, especially this Leia. I'm going to have some time to think about how I feel about this Leia. Still knowing Obi-Wan is Ben and everything. I wish they could have easily opted out of this where she could have bumped her head while the Empire was fighting on the ship or something like that. And then, what's his name? Haja. I don't know what his name is. I don't know what his name is. I think maybe that might be his name. He takes her to Alderaan where she has to go to the medical bay or something. Or maybe even when Obi-Wan comes off the ship back to Alderaan, he like kneels before her and then he kind of like mind wipes her and then he leaves, I guess. I don't know. But that would kind of be like an easy cop-out, I would say. Excuse me. But I think this might be it. Overall, I thought the episode was good. If I had to give it a rating, I would say it would be... I would say 8 because it was good. But I would give it a 9. I would give it a 9 if... Ooh, now I'm forgetting stuff that I really wanted to include, but I'll save that for next week. I'll continue this for next week. But for right now, I'll give it an 8.5, maybe a 9, low 9 or something. Because I thought it could have been better, but it was a solid episode overall. So these are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think if you guys would like to in the comment section. Next week I'll be doing Kenobi 1 week later. And also possibly there's rumors of season 2 going on, so I'll probably touch on that later. And then I'm actually almost finished with the script of a pitch for the sequel trilogy or a series or an animated series surrounding the sequel trilogy, which I think could help, I guess people like myself who weren't really, welcoming or liking the sequels to like them. So kind of like how Clone Wars did to the people that didn't like the prequels. But enough rambling. I'm going to end the video. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whatever time you're watching this. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out. See you later.